Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grumman Pilot's YouTube channel. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about Maynard Crosby's Yankee. It was the last Yankee ever built, number 459, and there's a tale about that Yankee. It started as a stock Yankee, and let's have some fun talking about its evolution. So we would like to ask you please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notify to stay current with our content. I'm going to cover it in a timeline, but jumping to the past, the tail on his airplane is not a Yankee tail. It's an AA-1C tail. And now let's go through the logbook entries in the attachment for the 337, and let's talk about some of the things that were made different on this airplane. It's going to take a while to read all these to you, but let's get started. First thing they did was they changed the engine from an O235 C1C to a Lycoming O320 E2A. So that was the first thing. Then they changed the engine mount, and here's the part numbers from one to the other. It basically going from the dynofocal, from the straight mount to the dynofocal mount, and was modified by adding an additional diagonal brace from center left top to left top mounting rear. And then they changed the right elevator from a part number to another associated part number, and then they also did the left elevator the same thing. And by doing all of that, they changed the angle of incidence of the horizontal stabilizer from -3 degrees to about a -1/4 of a degree. And for those of you who understand parasitic drag and racing, getting that tail to neutral reduces a lot of drag on the airplane, and it flies a lot faster. And then what they did was, after they did all the mounting, they talked about where the holes are, and then the shims that have to be used, and the part number for those shims, because you don't want any wobbling in the tail. Then they added the dorsal fin, and there's a standard part number, and you can add that to the two-place airplanes, especially a lot of the O320s. It gives you a little bit more stability with that little bit shorter turtle deck. Now let's talk about some more of the fun stuff that they did to that airplane. Now after they did that, they changed the nose bowl. That's an AA-1C nose bowl. You notice the big square intakes. They also added the oil cooler as part of the retrofit, again like the AA-1C, and they changed the prop to a 6-inch propeller, and they gave you the two required there, and they were doing that for testing. Now there was a testing plan they all had to do. Now let's get into a little bit of the timeline, but let's talk about the one final thing they did to the airplane. And they converted the trim system from the AA-1 series to the AA-1C series. And then here's a look at what the nose bowl looks like, and there's the intake for the carburetor. Again, it's an O360 with the A4M. It has a carburetor on the bottom. Bolts up just like the O235 and the O320s. So there you go. That's how they were able to get that done. Now that's the first part of the installation. So here's a little bit of the history. It was originally certified in the factory on January 4th, 1972. It was then ferried across the country to Western Aero Sales, which was Maynard Crosby's business in California. And then a week later, 1/11/1972, was sold to his first owner, Mr. Jennings. And then Mr. Jennings sold it back to Maynard in 7/19/1975, and since Maynard was a dealer, I'm betting there was a Traveler or a Tiger trade in there somewhere. And at the same time, in July of 1978, he came up with the experimental by adding the tail to it and the O320, which was the first modification to the aircraft. 1978 was when it entered experimental. It'd be 1980 before it came out. There was a lot of flying in there, and it was a fast airplane, folks. But considering how the FAA was back in the late 1970s, it still took Maynard 2 years to get that airplane back to standard certification. So getting an STC wasn't just a matter of putting an engine on it, flying it around for a day or two, and getting it certified. It took some time and work. So did it once, he's going to do it again. So in 1986, he decided to put an O360 A4M in the airplane with a 6-inch propeller and move the battery to the back bulkhead. As you can see, and it's going to take 2 years for that to be approved. It'll be 1988 before that's all finished. So the latest modifications of the timeline of Maynard Yankee is that today, October 19th, 2023, we closed escrow on the airplane yesterday, and today Rich Harrison and Mark Matthews and Dan Baisley are all heading to Payne Field, and they're going to load the Yankee up on a trailer, bring it back to Oregon for a day or two, and then bring it across the country to me. So I've bought another Yankee. So now I've had Yankee number 2 and I've had Yankee number last. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found all this information about Maynard Yankee useful and informative. I'll have another video when it gets home and we get it conformed, but we hope you found it useful and informative. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day flying your Grumman. Informative about the AG5B air vents. Thanks for watching and have a great day flying your Grumman. You know, forget buying expensive toys for your kittens and cats. We find that just taking the aircraft spruce box and the paper on the tile floor is more than enough amusement for them for hours.